We are streaming online via Zoom and YouTube. Is there anyone in attendance in need of special assistance to see, hear, or participate in these proceedings? Please take note of the hearing procedures on the screens.
Put it in there.
I think the Jeopardy music should be playing right about now. Okay. I will be submitting my written decision within 5 business days of this hearing on these files that we are hearing today. And at this time, I'd like to lead the room in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I did not put my hand behind my back. Okay. So, are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. Are there any announcements?
I don't have any announcements.
Okay. Are there any corrections or changes to the April 5th, 2023 hearing minutes? I don't know. Okay, then I declare them approved. Okay, so at this time, we are going to start out with file V0002-23, a variance, lot size minimum. The applicants are requesting to create one 1.5 acre lot and one 3 acre lot where 5 acres is required. The property is zoned R5. The project is located off Dufert Road in Section 3, Township 55 North, Range 4 West, Boise Meridian, and I have no conflict of interest with this project.
Okay.
Bud.
Hello, hearing examiner, members of the public. Tyson Lewis, Bonner County Planner, representing V2. The lot size minimum variance for a very oddly shaped parcel. So as you can see here on the right, this is a representation of what this parcel looks like and the intended lots to be created out of it. 2 of the lots are going to be conforming to lot size minimum, which is 5 acres. They'll be around 6.54 acres. The lot that's separated there by Dufert Road will be 2.94 acres approximately, and the lot that's nearest the Pend Oreille River is going to be approximately 1.93 acres. The applicant requested 1.5 acres just in case when they actually do the physical survey, they're positive that they aren't going to go under that lot size. And here's some more site plan details. There's that waterfront lot, and there's the lot that's separated by Dufert Road. Over the background, the parcel is approximately 16.96 acres. Its land use designations rural residential, zoning's R5. It's accessed by Dufert Road, which is a Bonner County owned and maintained road. The environmental features that it has some map slopes on the southeast corner there, you can see, and doesn't have any map wetlands. One part of the property does contain frontage on the Pend Oreille River. Services, it'll be served, the proposed lots as well as the existing lot property will be served by private septic drain field. The lots will be served by individual wells, fire protections by West Pend Oreille Fire District, powers provided by Northern Lights. It's in Bonner County School District 83. So, a little floodplain review. You can see the light blue there at the top. That's the floodplain layer overlaid, and this is floodplain manager Jason Johnson's comment. I won't read it. I will butcher the numbers. These are the standards by which we review variances, this one particularly. Agency routing went out on March 14th. These are the departments and agencies that it went to. It's also routed to the public, all adjacent property owners within a 300-foot radius of the property. No comments were received from any agency that had specific recommendations or comments. One of the 3 standards by which we measure variance, whether the conditions apply to the property that don't generally apply to other properties. This is the applicant's statement. It should be in your staff report, hearing examiner. I don't know if there's Want me to read it or you want to watch it and read it for a sec? But that's the applicant statement. Staff's response, essentially the property is unique. It's got one portion that fronts the river and is kind of offshot from the rest of the property. And there's also a portion that's completely separated from the bulk of the property by a public right-of-way, which is not allowed in our code now. You couldn't create a lot that's got separated parts by a public right-of-way. Circumstances that don't result from the actions of the applicant. So the applicant states that the applicant did not create the property as it is. Staff did deed research to make sure that the applicant did not create the parcel in its current configuration. One of the oldest deeds I could find was from April 14th, 1992. The applicant purchased the property February 24th, 2021. It did not create the conditions which apply to the property. Public interest is the third criteria by which we measure a variance, whether the proposal will cause any harm. Applicant says no. Staff says no. No public comments were received at the time the staff report was written. This was amended. One comment was received after the report was written. So here is part of that public comment response. They had stated that they were told no at some point by the planning department for a similar request. Staff couldn't find any record of that. We did find one property that was in the 300-foot buffer zone of this property and found that it was a 1.6 acre property. It wasn't afflicted by the same conditions that the subject property is. So this is staff's rationale for recommending approval. The proposed waterfront lot will be larger than most of the adjacent parcels. Some of the adjacent waterfront parcels are even under an acre. Most of the adjacent properties were all created prior to the zoning ordinance, therefore non-conforming under 5 acres. It's not a high density land division. 2 of the properties will be meeting the lot size minimum at over 5 acres. The proposed waterfront lot will be larger than the surrounding parcels. The 2 proposed middle lots were going to meet the minimum lot size. And the lot that's proposed on the south side of Dufert Road could by itself become a property without a variance. Bonner County Code recognizes that properties can't be divided by public rights of way, so it could be a standalone as is. This is just a little representation of some of the adjacent property sizes to that lot that's going to front the water. You can see that it's approximately between 1.5 and 2.6 acres if you include the submerged lands, where the adjacent properties, a lot of them are under an acre. This is the part that's bisected or separated from the bulk of the property by Dufert Road. You can see that it'll be approximately 3 acres. There's another property directly to the southwest that's also separated by Dufert Road. So staff concluded that this proposal is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code. Staff recommends approval with conditions. And those conditions are pretty standard. Only the development highlighted on the site plan has been reviewed against Bonner County Revised Code, and the variance shall not supersede any deed restrictions. And with that, talk of the day, that's my wiener dog. We have been laughing about it all day. So, questions?
Thank you.
And it's my last public presentation, so I got to do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, it was a good one. You did good. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Okay. At this time, the applicant can make their presentation. There's name.
Scott Comfort of J.E. Sewell emailed me earlier and he said he wasn't going to be able to make it, but I told him that it should be pretty well in hand and he can chime in on Zoom if he's on there, but I don't think he is.
I don't see his name.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I didn't have any questions in this. Okay. So. Oh, this is so cute. Okay, so at this time I'm going to read the rules of testimony. If you wish to testify, you will need to please state your name for the record. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per person. You may give your 3 minutes to another person, so they have up to 6 minutes to speak, but no one is allowed more than 6 minutes. Public comments are limited to the specifics of this application. If you agree with another speaker, please just acknowledge agreement. No need to repeat the information again. Any personal or derogatory comments about another person or their position will not be allowed. Clapping, cheering, or booing will not be allowed either. Is there anyone that has a written statement that they would like to enter into the record at this time? Why did I take my glasses off? So at this time, I'm calling for any supporting public testimony in person or online. Any neutral testimony in person or online? Any opposing testimony in person or online? Opposing?
There's 3 people online, but nobody with their hand raised.
Okay. So if you could please come to the mic and now state your name for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, Monica Gunner for the record. And this person bought this parcel in 2021. They knew it was 5 acre minimums. We are 5 acre minimums in that whole area. He knew it when he bought it. He should not be able to split this property because basically it really is against the law. And it will set a huge precedence for what's going to continue down for any parcels out there that want to go from 5 to smaller parcels. He bought it that way. It should stay that way. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else with opposing testimony online or in person?
Still no hands online.
Okay. Anyone in the audience who did not sign up to speak that would like to enter their comments into the record? All right. Since there's not an applicant to rebut, he's still not online? Nope. Okay. All right, then I'm going to close this portion of the hearing to the public testimony for this file. And okay. Okay, so in the situation here, I do agree that this variance would allow these lots to become more conforming to what's existing out there in the area. So I am going to make the decision to approve this project V0002-23, requesting to create a 1.5 acre lot in a 2.94 acre lot where 5 acres is required, finding that it is in accord with the Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law, and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this decision and transmit to all interested parties. The action that could be taken to obtain the variance is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in taking of private property. Okay, so I'm going to close file V0002-23. And we are going to move on to file CUP0001-23, a conditional use permit. The applicants are requesting a conditional use permit for a surface mining, gravel pit, and rock crushing operation adjacent to a historical operation of a like type, adjacent to an existing aggregate processing facility as well. The proposed site is approximately 26.79 acres and is zoned as Rural 10 and Rural 5. The project is located off Highway 2 in Section 25, Township 57 North, Range 3 West, Boise Meridian. And I have no conflict of interest with this, so I will turn it over to the staff.
I'm sorry, it looks like the Zoom controls have disappeared on the screen. Let me see here. Oh, here it is. No. Where's the bar?
Talking your PowerPoint or?
The PowerPoint, so it's just,
Which one? This one?
yeah, number one. Okay, so we're here to discuss CUP 0001-23. It's a gravel pit expansion. The applicants are requesting a conditional use permit today for a surface mining, gravel pit, and rock crushing operation that is adjacent to a historical operation of like type and also adjacent to an existing aggregate processing facility. I'm sorry, I'm Jason Johnson, Bonner County Planning, just for the record. I forgot to mention that. On the screen here, we have the dates of the required noticing for this file, as well as the site plan that was submitted by the applicant in this case. Here we have the vicinity map submitted by the applicant, as well as some basic data about the site. The site is split zone, rural 5, rural 10, with a land use designation of rural residential. Site is a little under 27 acres in size. An existing driveway into the site off of US 2 is going to be used to access the site. It's the same driveway that's being used right now. No water or sewer service is available or planned to be provided. The site is within the Selkirk Fire District. We have an aerial photo of the site produced by staff, taken from County GIS. On the right in bright blue there is the rural residential land use designation, and on the left is the split zoning that you can see. For the record, the split zoning doesn't really relate to this in any way. The use would be allowed in rural 5 or rural 10 both. Basic environmental features for the site. The site does contain some mapped slopes. As per the applicant, the subject parcel is steeply sloping from south to north. Final slope will be consistent with an IDL reclamation plan yet to be approved. The site does not contain any wetlands, rivers, streams, lake frontages. The site is not within a floodplain, and the soils on the site are not designated as prime farmland. So on the screen here is a map of the grade on the site. Everything that isn't colored in is under 15% grade. Everything in yellow is 15 to 30% grade, and everything in red is a greater than 30% grade slope. Map of the soils on the site. Like I said previously, none of the soils are considered prime farmland. This is a list of the agencies that were noticed in the course of reviewing this file. We received comments from Idaho Transportation Department, Bonner County Road and Bridge, Idaho Department of Lands, the City of Dover, Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. All of these are included in the file with the exception of the Bonner County Road and Bridge documents. Those were given to the hearing examiner just now. We got 3 no comments from other agencies, no comment from all other notice agencies, no response at all. And we did not receive public comments on this file as of the date of preparation of the staff report. So a detailed point-by-point review for this proposed use is contained within the staff report. It's not staff's intent to reread several pages of single-space text into the record here. It is in the staff report, though. Highlight from that standards review two issues. The applicant is asking for 2 exceptions to requirements under the standard CUP standards that we would apply. First, our code calls for, in the case of a mining operation, calls for a reclamation plan to be approved by Idaho Department of Lands prior to approval of the conditional use permit. And our code also calls for preparation and submission of a grading and stormwater management plan prior to approval. The applicant does acknowledge these 2 requirements, including the grading, the reclamation plan with IDL and the grading stormwater management plan with Bonner County. The applicant has agreed to acquire these 2 needed approvals if they can get an approval for the CUP today. Staff is in support of these requests. They seem to be reasonable. There is a substantial cost and time investment required to produce both of these plans. Staff has added recommended conditions to the staff report that, if adopted, will ensure that these requirements will be met by this project if the CUP is approved here today. Staff report contains a detailed analysis of how this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, as well as comments from the applicant on how this is also consistent with the comprehensive plan. These comments are included in the staff report. Again, it's several pages of text that we're not going to read into the record verbatim. Basic findings of fact on this: the property is split zone, rural 5 and rural 10. Surface mining, gravel pit, and rock crushing operations are conditionally allowed in these zones upon meeting the required standards called out above in the entitled section, or called out in the staff report rather. The project is accessed off Highway 2, protected by a Selkirk Fire District. Power is provided by Avista per the applicant. There's no water or sewage service for the site, and the site is approximately 26.79 acres. Based on this analysis and what's contained in the staff report, staff concluded this project is consistent with Bonner County Code based upon the analysis provided, and provided that the recommended conditions of approval in the staff report are adopted if approved. That concludes my presentation. If there were any questions.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, would the applicant please come up and make their presentation?
Great, thanks so much. Jeremy Grimm, Whiskey Rock Planning and Consulting for the record. I'm here today to represent Lawrence and Patricia Peak on file CUP 0001-23, a conditional use permit for surface mining and gravel pit and rock crushing in Bonner County. The subject parcel, as staff mentioned, is highlighted there in red on the screen. And staff mentioned the property is split zoned. A little bit of history on this property. The Peaks purchased this parcel many years ago, decades ago, in anticipation of the future expansion of their over 50-year in operation gravel operation, mining operation on the site. They did so and even purchased some adjacent parcels to the north and east to try to buffer any potential concerns of neighbors in the future. So for the better part of several decades, they have anticipated and expected to continue the development of their mining operations on the site. As you can see in yellow, that's the general area of extraction. And they don't anticipate actually doing crushing on the site. They would be pushing this material over onto the existing operations to the west. They'd be accessing and producing this work, that little blue dotted access road, accessing from an existing site, an existing access on Highway 2. The land is currently vacant. As staff mentioned, it's rural 10, rural 5 split zone. We do not, there will be no new traffic generated from this use. It's effectively an existing operation, and this just supplies continuing materials for the operation. There's really no change in character to the site because this current operation is going on directly west. So it won't inherently change the character of the area. Gravel is a necessary public resource, and they do have an IDL plan and stormwater for that western existing operation. And as staff mentioned, that is one of the requests that we've asked an exception that we first secure the conditional use permit before going to the expense and effort of developing and submitting and securing a IDL reclamation plan and preparing a stormwater plan. Aggregate industry from some deliberations from the Bonner County Planning and Zoning Commission back in 2007. They said, you have to mine where the material is, not where it's conveniently zoned. In this case, the material is there and it does meet the conditional uses of the rural residential zone. Little background, pretty much every aspect of modern life does require aggregate and gravel, whether it be roads, highways, foundations, septic systems. It is considered a necessary public material. Peak Sand and Gravel employs about 70 people in the community. They have an annual payroll of over $5 million, and they have over 700 customers that hold accounts with them. Over the course of a typical human's life, they'll utilize over 1 million pounds of stone, sand, and gravel. When we look at the natural resource policy from the county, Bonner County recognizes the full development of its abundant mineral resources is a desirable and necessary activity. Further, the natural resource policy talks about supporting finished products from natural resources, encourages the enhanced natural resource industries to enhance natural resource industries. It speaks of the goals of increased local economic benefits of the resources contained on private and public lands. And it emphasizes no net loss of investment-backed expectation of these lands. And finally, the county must strive to protect its mining heritage, protect the vital natural resources that are necessary to keep these enterprises in operation. And it does recognize that commercial mining does provide significant economic value to the county. Bonner County also has on their site the Code of the West. This is an informal sort of informational document that provides new residents to the area the facts of mining and land use and other aspects of life in Bonner County. And I just want to emphasize it does let people know that owners of mineral rights have the ability to change the surface characteristic to extract these minerals, and that people should be aware that adjacent mining uses and gravel pits can expand. The Idaho Constitution delegates regulation over mines to the Idaho Department of Lands. They are responsible for administrating the laws and regulation and oversight of mines, and they are there to promote effective environmental responsible mining. So when it comes down to who's going to oversee and ensure that this is done properly, we have IDL there to do that. In addition, IDAPA speaks to the other responsible parties that ensure that mining is operated and they're claimed properly. That includes the MSHA that works with the mine operators in terms of health and safety, noise, dust, and related issues. OSHA, of course, for people working on the site. As I mentioned, IDL, Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, the EPA, and drilling and blasting is regulated by the ATF and MSHA. So there's a whole myriad of different layers of protections and folks watching and regulating these activities. As is identified in Bonner County Revised Code 12336, mining, stone quarries, gravel pits, and stone mills are conditional use in the rural zone. And as we look at a conditional use permit, I know you've seen this before, but I like to put it up. We've got the prohibited uses, we've got the permitted uses in green, and then the conditional uses are not prohibited, and they should be generally approved as long as reasonable conditions are applied. So when we look at the comprehensive plan goals and objectives, we concur with staff report that the request does meet all of these various elements of the comprehensive plan. When we look at Bonner County Revised Code compliance, these sections per the staff report, the request is in compliance with all those, with the exception that we're asking for a deferral on those IDL and stormwater plans. And just from the comp plan 6.2, There are about 10 to 15% of mining operations in the county currently that don't have approved reclamation plans. The Peaks have them for their existing operations, and again, are committed to developing them for this shall it be approved. So the closing comments, the CUP request is in accord with the comprehensive plan. The company has a track record of being a responsible, considerate neighbor for over 50 years in operation on this site or adjacent to it. The continued mineral extraction on the site will not change the character of the area. It's not going to generate new truck traffic or trips. Those elements are simply based on demand for aggregate, and the current facility prepares and loads that aggregate on site. As proposed, the site will be designed to address the needs and functioning of the site for a gravel mine, and we will again secure the IDL reclamation plan. And I would also mention that Idaho Fish and Game didn't have any concern about wildlife. The rural zoning of the property aligns with the request. It's not prohibited, rather it's a CDP. And finally, the applicants are willing to limit normal operations to the hours between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays, with no operations on Sundays or holidays, just as an effort to appease some of the comment that is in the record there in the staff report. So with that, I would answer any questions or wait for rebuttal if there is any.
So I just have a couple questions. Can you explain what methods they'll be using for the dust abatement?
At this point, I'd like to bring Matt Peak up. He's in charge of their operations. I'll let him introduce himself, and he knows a lot more about these details than I do.
Either one's fine, as long as you just state your name for the record.
Matt Peak.
Okay. So the question was if you could kind of explain the dust abatement process.
So the dust abatement process, we use like water, mag chloride on the roads, water on the rock crushing operation, and then water for the surface dust. We have wells. There's 2 wells on site.
Oh, okay. And then how do you go about notifying the area when you're blasting?
The drillers will drive around and talk to all the neighbors before they do it, and then I have a few that I call. There's people across the river that I'll call to them, let them know, so it doesn't freak anybody out.
Good.
The neighbors tell us to let them know.
Okay, that's great. You had already answered my other questions, so that's perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Okay. So I don't think we have anybody new in here, so I'm not going to repeat the rules of testimony unless you guys really want me to. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, does anyone have a written statement that they would like to enter into the record? Okay. So I'm calling for any supporting public testimony in person or online. Any neutral public testimony in person or online. Any opposing public testimony in person or online?
Just as a heads up, we also have a rep from Idaho Department of Lands here to answer any of those questions.
Okay, cool.
They regulate that reclamation.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who did not sign up to speak or who would like to enter any comments into the record? Just because there's no rebuttal. Okay. All right, then I close the hearing to public testimony for this file. And okay, so I approve this project file CUP 0001-23 Peak Gravel Pit, finding that it is in accord with the general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this decision and transmit to all interested parties. The action that could be taken to obtain the conditional use permit is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in a taking of private property. Okay, so at this time I'm closing file CUP 0001-23. And we are moving on to CUP 0002-23, conditional use permit, Granite Hill gravel pit. The applicants are requesting a conditional use permit for a surface mining, gravel pit, and rock crushing operation adjacent to a historical operation of a like type, also adjacent to an existing aggregate processing facility. The proposed site is approximately 16.62 acres and is zoned as Rural 5. The project is located off Highway 95 in Section 23, Township 54 North, Range 3 West, Boise Meridian. And I have no conflict of interest with this, so I'll turn it over to staff and clean my dang glasses. It's not there.
Okay, thank you. Once again, Jason Johnson with Bonner County Planning. We are here to discuss CUP 0002-23. It is another gravel pit expansion. Many of the points in this file will be very similar to the previous file. So the applicants in this case are requesting a conditional use permit for a surface mining, gravel pit, and rock crushing operation adjacent to a historical operation of like type, adjacent to an existing aggregate processing facility. On the screen, we have the site plan as submitted by the applicant, as well as the dates that the required noticing was accomplished on this file. Here we have the vicinity map as provided by the applicant, as well as some basic data about the site. The site is currently vacant, zoned Rural 5 with rural residential land use designation. The site is about 16.5 acres. For the applicant, the existing driveway and access to the existing pit off of Highway 95 will provide access to the new site as well. For the applicant, no water and sewer service are proposed. This is in Selkirk Fire District, and power is provided via Vista for the applicant. Here we have an aerial photo of the site as obtained by staff from County GIS. We have the land use designation and the zoning from County GIS, rural residential land use designation, just like the previous file. This site is zoned entirely Rural 5. The site does contain a very few map slopes, not many. As per the applicant, the subject parcel is comprised of a bench that is generally flat. The site has no wetlands, no rivers, streams, lake frontages. The parcel is not within a flood zone. The site is primarily covered in young growth timber, according to the applicant. Two types of soils on the site, Kootenai-Bonner gravelly silt loams and Kootenai gravelly silt loam. The Kootenai-Bonner gravelly silt loams are considered as farmland of statewide importance. The gravelly silt loams are not. Here we have again the slopes, as previously explained. If it's clear with no color, it's under 15% grade. 15 to 30% grade is the yellow, and the red are grades over 30%. For the most part, except in the extreme southern corner of the far southwestern corner there's no steep slopes on the property to speak of. The majority of the site is considered farmland of statewide importance. That is the purple area up there. These are the agencies that were noticed in the course of reviewing this file. As far as responses, we got responses from Bonner County Road and Bridge, Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, Idaho Transportation Department. These are included in the file, with the exception, as previously stated, Bonner County Road and Bridge documents were just presented to the hearing examiner today. Those were omitted from the staff report, but have been added to the record. We got a couple of no comments from Panhandle Health and Idaho Fish and Game. And no public comments were received on this application as of the date of preparation of the staff report. So a detailed point-by-point standards review for the proposed use is contained in the staff report. We won't read the entire thing back into the record. As in the previous case, the applicant is asking for two exceptions to the standard CUP requirements, namely that the reclamation plan required by Idaho Department of Lands, if they could get that after CUP approval, is the first thing they're asking for. The second thing they want is to be allowed to get the grading and stormwater management plan approved following CUP approval. Both these things, as previously mentioned, are required by code. As previously mentioned, for the same reason, the department is supporting these requests. They seem to be reasonable. There is, of course, a large cost and time investment for these required plans, and before they put the money and time into it, they just want to know that they're going to actually be able to accomplish the use. So staff has added recommendations to this staff report, recommended conditions. If these conditions are adopted, these will ensure that these requirements will be met if this project is approved here today. Again, a detailed point-by-point review covering how this proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan is contained in the staff report. There are detailed staff comments as well as detailed comments from the applicant representative as to how this is consistent with the staff report in a variety of ways. Or I'm sorry, consistent with the comprehensive plan in a variety of ways. So findings of fact, the property is zoned Rural 5. In the Rural 5 zone, surface mining, gravel pit, and rock crushing operations are conditionally allowed upon meeting the required standards called out in the staff report. The project in this case is accessed off of Highway 95 and is in the Selkirk Fire District. Power is provided by Avista according to the applicant. No water or sewer service on the site according to the applicant, and the site is approximately 16.62 acres. Staff concluded, based on the analysis in the staff report, that this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code based upon the analysis that was given, and provided that the recommended conditions of approval are adopted. That concludes this presentation. Were there any questions?
Thank you. Okay, at this time, the applicant can make their presentation.
Yeah, did you? There's another.
PDF. Want to open the other one?
Yeah, those.
This one? Second.
Grab my gavel.
Thanks again, Jeremy Grimm for the record. This time representing Granite Hill LLC for a conditional use permit CUP 0002-23 for surface mining, gravel pit, and rock crushing off of Highway 95 in Bonner County. As staff mentioned, the subject parcel is highlighted in red here. I'm going to skip over several of the slides just because they're duplicative of what we just talked about. But per the site, 16.6 acres, rural 5, vacant land, access to the adjacent parcel, an adjacent aggregate processing facility. Again, no new traffic. This is just going to supply additional source material to the property, replenishing that exhausted material. And it is a necessary public resource. You already know all about how important aggregate and gravel is to us, and our natural resource plan and the Code of the West, and all of the safeguards that we have ensuring that gravel and mining and rock crushing operations are performed safely. We know that it's a conditional use in the rural zone. We talked about conditional uses versus prohibited and permitted uses. Per the staff report, this does align and meets the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. We concur, as well as the following sections of Bonner County Revised Code. The only addition that came to my attention after the submission is that the applicants have actually submitted a IDL plan that included this site as an expansion. And you can see some of the elements that go together with this in that lower left. There's calculations about current slope, final slope, grades, drainage, things to that effect. So, of course, prior to issuance, we would certainly provide that information to you showing that we've applied and that there is a IDL reclamation plan in place. So closing comments, again, it's in accord with comp plan, great track record of this company, great neighbors. It's not going to change the character of the site or the area, and it's already been designed to address the needs and function of the site for a gravel mine. And finally, the Rural 5 zoning aligns with the request, and it's not a prohibited use, rather permitted through a CUP. So with that, I'd entertain any questions.
So they still will do the stormwater plan after the fact, though, or after?
Yeah,
this?
we'll provide both those, yes.
Because that wasn't already done to include that site earlier?
It's not 100% clear to me, but we'll get those to you. Yes.
Okay. And then the same abatement processes and?
That's a yes.
That's a yes, I saw the nod. Okay. Thank you, that's all I have, thank you. All right, so at this time, is there any one that has a written statement that they would like to enter into the record? Any supporting public testimony in person or online? Any neutral public testimony in person or online? Any opposing public testimony in person or online?
Oh, actually, we do have one online.
Okay.
Go ahead, Randy.
Randy, if you could go ahead.
I think my question was, do you have me?
Could you state your name for the record?
Hello? Randy Stoltz, and I think my question was answered. My question was, I heard that there were prime egg soils on the site, and if there was an abatement plan, and apparently there is. So I guess my question was answered. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay. Any other testimony in person or
Not
online?
online.
Okay, all right. So there's nothing to rebut then. So I'm going to close the hearing to public testimony. Okay. And okay. At this time, I approve this project file CUP 0002-23 Granite Hill Gravel Pit, finding that it is in accord with the general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and the Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law, and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report, and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this decision and transmit to all interested parties. The action that could be taken to obtain the conditional use permit is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in the taking of private property. Okay, so I am closing file CUP 0002-23. Okay. So Any staff updates?
I won't be here for our next hearing,
Cute.
but other than that, I don't have any other changes. I think Tyson mentioned this was his last hearing until
Yes, what is that about?
his last day's next week. So,
Did he leave us already?
been here a few years.
No, I mean like,
Oh, yeah, you went back
Okay.
upstairs to work, so
He has senioritis.
aww.
thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
And I didn't have any plans about, or questions about the rec plan because I've written my own.
Oh, you have?
house. Yeah, I used to
Okay.
work out at the INEL for an engineering firm in southern Idaho. And I've written a few rec plans, so I was like, I know what those are.
It's a big business down there.
Yeah, we did a lot down there. Yeah, it was a lot, because we were out on the site mostly, so. Lots of fun. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt
No,
there.
you're fine. So other than that, I don't really have any other updates, so things are kind of going as usual.
Where are you gonna be?
In Hawaii with that.
Good man, you are a good man. Oh, awesome. Writing these down, so. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Nobody else has anything they wanna?
Oh, I wish I was going to Hawaii.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'll be here with you, Jack.
Cool.
Me too.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't snow.
You never know these days.
I know, right? It's so weird. It's so weird. Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then I'm gonna announce that we are adjourned.